26th day of hell. It's the 26th day of hell. Hi everybody, welcome. Hope you're doing well. Did Fukushima massive radioactive fallout cause a mass die-off worldwide, still ongoing by the way, of species and humans? Of species and humans. Just bear with me. Just give me 1 second, my apologies. We're getting there. There you go, that's a bit better. Hopefully. So you got a big earthquake on Thursday. It's interior. And we're going to get to that in a second. I'm Dana. Hope you're doing well. That's 709. You can call in Canada. 589-4406. 709-589-4406. So you got Fukushima's on the coastline. The earthquake is in the center of the country. And it's a significant earthquake. Just bear with me. So think about the nuclear accident and the releases from Fukushima for a second. There was 865,000 extra cancers in the first year. So cancer is not the only illness or disease or autoimmune deficiency or injury or illness. They faked Reactor 4, and they being the entire planet, the media and the universities, all faked Reactor 4 to your left. And nobody, even though I've created this picture over 10 years ago, I don't see, there is a couple of the regulars here that have used the picture sometimes, right? But I think it's probably the most important picture in history, isn't it? When you got the absolute Gotham, you got fake news, as fake as you can get. Behind me, you got 4 different medias. This is ABC Australia, Cecilia Vega. All 4 of them pretending. This is just a fraction of the media that come out and done this in 2013 and 14. And you can go to CBS or BBC or CNN or ABC Australia and find the video. I can play it for you if you like. If that's what blows your skirt up. But this really happened. And the significance of it is pretty horrific. So the radioactive fallout to your left top is 20 days of plutonium-239. That's just one of the many isotopes that's recognized as covering the entire planet. Remember, the food was banned in 14 prefectures by 55 countries. And the Neptunium-239 dispersal is another model based on 20 days, based on TEPCO's numbers. And we launched emergency research expeditions with the Zodiacs and a sailboat. And the species to your left are extinct. They're actually gone. And we know this because we've done from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska for 6 years. The species didn't recover, and that's the reason we went back so many times. It was a grueling 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean, under siege the entire time, hated, hunted, and despised. I've been attacked and physically assaulted. I've been threatened. I've been shot at for going out and documenting the coastline. I have 6 gag orders. When I came in for a particularly brutal expedition, you're talking 4 to 5 months on the ocean. This is, I'm not lying to you. I'm not misrepresenting it. It's not deception. This is the fact. We've been doing this for years and years. Over a decade straight, this particular show, when I'm not on the ocean or doing research, in desperation to get you to wake up. And people look at it and they go right back to sleep. And they're like, well, their eyes go blinkety blink and they just not out of reality again. Please don't be one of those people. The only reason I'm still here is because the world won't fight back. And so I'm forced to do this constantly. I'm an old broken man, and everybody knows it, especially the industry. And I'm forced to come here as many times as I can. Run myself right into the ground. Because the planet deserves your voice to be used. The species to your left are exterminated. They didn't recover. Went back for 5 more years. The species to your left, they're gone. You're not coming back. You never take those pictures to your left again. And this is because of Fukushima perpetual radioactive fallout. This is not a conjecture. Okay, it's not an opinion. This is a fact. The documentation, I'm going to show you more tonight. Now, I've done the research year after year and provided those pictures free, so the academics can't say it didn't exist, they didn't know it existed, and didn't have evidence of it. I provided the GPSs everywhere I went. And for doing something like that, I'm considered the worst person on the planet at this stage. So they couldn't get at me scientifically, so they attacked me by making up lies and deceit and dishonesty, deception against me. It's also known as Operation Long Jump. It's organized attack by corporations upon my reputation. And it worked, obviously. If I was Alex Jones, you'd be gone fucking nuts, right? You'd be out there fighting right alongside of me. If I was David Icke, you'd be out there fucking gone to war right alongside me, wouldn't you? There'd be a million of you out there, right? But you're not fucking out there. Why not? Because unless I'm some popular celebrity, then the truth doesn't fucking matter or something? Is that what's going on? Is that what fucking gets you to sleep at night or something? Is that what takes to look the other fucking way? Are they going to tell your children why there's no fucking species? And that you had an opportunity to try to do something and you fucking went down the useless road. And all of these years of doing these research expeditions, the attack upon me was brutal. That's brutal what they done to me. I'm a good fucking person. I did nothing to nobody. I went out and done a moral and ethical thing. And I paid a brutal fucking price for it. Not only my reputation, but my fucking health, too. I worked my fucking ass off and I ran myself into the fucking ground so you can have a future. Don't think I didn't. Don't fucking say I did. Don't ever fucking say I didn't. Give me that. Because that's exactly what I've fucking done. You know it. And I've been here at least 5 days a week for almost 10 years. And nobody wants to have a conversation. It's disgusting. It's incomprehensible. I can look back on what I've done and say I tried my fucking best. I can tell you that much. I'll never regret anything I've done. Not a fucking thing. And I always had to take the hardest fucking route, too. Greenpeace fucking hid away from me. Blocked me worldwide. So hang around and listen to the story I got for you Nights of Wink. It's quite a fucking story. Again. And I'll just keep telling the story until you finally listen, okay? And unless you kill me first. It seems I got 7 stints in. I might be around for a fucking while. So we had a major earthquake in a nuclear wasteland. And I'm going to explain the nuclear wasteland for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to talk about the earthquake. And I'm going to take you through some legacy headlines from 2011, 2012. And I'll be back tomorrow night. Don't worry about it. I'm only going to tell you 500 more times. So when you're ready, come back. I'll be here. Fukushima plume model, the species won't, but I'll be. Fukushima plume model shows 1 million atoms, 1 million fucking atoms per square meter over the west coast after the reactors exploded. The industry buried the truth. The universities buried the truth. The media clearly buried the truth. This was the plume model of the Xenon 133. That's the study. And that was the plume model. This is only based on 20 days in your top left-hand corner. As you'll see, the rest of the models in your bottom right-hand corner is 19 days. And the whole planet's covered. And that's the typical model. Unit 2, Unit 2 reactor, completely liquefied. And we've never seen this before in the history of nuclear power. And what makes that such a terrible thing is that it's burning at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures in this molten liquid lava. And it's cannibalizing rocks and steel or gravel and water, whatever, at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. But that's important because it atomizes and aerosols and ionizes and radiates everything because nothing can handle 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. It's like if you got lava and you put butter into the lava, what happens to it? Or if you throw water at it, just poof, up it goes. But the elements, the particles, the physical atoms, the invisible snowstorm, are man-made elements. And your body doesn't have a trigger to defend against it. Neither does any other species on this planet. So it attacks everything with replicating cells, period. Bar nothing. And because it's not created by the sun, your immune system has no defense against it. And because you can't smell it or hear it or feel it or taste it or see it or hear it or pick it up or throw rocks at it, you got a fucking problem on your hands. They got you. But you got the ability and the opportunity that you might never get again to absorb the information and be able to make informed decisions based on facts. Fucking facts. Not the spin machine, not the propaganda disgusting parasitic machines, but the actual facts. And you don't know how lucky you are, trust me. And yes, I'm bragging. That's fucking right, I'm bragging, because nobody else on the planet is telling you. Probably about time I started bragging. Something so simple as telling the truth has got me censored like I don't even exist. And that's the contempt they have for everybody in every species to do that to me. That's contempt. And cowardness on top of that. Unit 2 completely liquefied. So it cannibalizes aerosols, ionizes, and radiates every fucking thing that it comes in contact and releases that as a plume. It's a perpetual plume machine. And of the kind you can't even conceive. The harm and the damage and the perpetual, for millions of years, the damage. Because you can't destroy these elements. We got a problem. We need to address it. We need to be honest about it. Rain with 20 million particles, physical particles. And this is what I'm talking about from the atomizing, aerosoling, and ionizing and radiating of anything it comes in contact with. Of iodine, this is even worse. You're talking about 20 million brutal pulses of energy every second, just per liter of rainfall over the northern hemisphere, over North America. This is a Canadian study. This is applicable heavily to North America and the rest of the planet. And don't think of it as just iodine 131, because that's the game we want to play on you. There's 10 times more 132, 30 times more 133, 31 times more iodine 129. With a 15 million year half-life, it's never going away. And the plumes cover the planet based on 468 hours is 19.5 days. That's 20 days. That's 19.5 days. Doomsday-like radiation released if reactor 4 fuel pool, and they covered up that fuel pool, which is, they done that right from the beginning, so it was very important to them, and then they took it to a different level, as I showed you at the beginning. I'll show you again right now. Like, they're pretending they're in a building that don't exist. Name some other time where you've seen the media do something like that. They're pretending they're not even in Japan. They have 70 identical reactors in the United States. The exact same colors, the same shapes, the same schematics, the same engineers. The radioactive fallout recorded in Canada from Ottawa was 220 million atoms per liter. This is a 25 million year half-life. Saturate the thyroid glands of every species, including you and your loved ones and your children. And because the harm shows up in increments over a decade or two, and it lasts forever, it never goes away, it means you're producing radioactive hormones. That's why you're not cleaning bugs off your windshield anymore. This is another model, a different model of cesium-137. This is the French government based on 15 days when it stops. At 1 million to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air. This is cesium-137 pulses energy 600 feet every second. And you're not coming up with any solution for water. You're not coming any solutions for your home ventilation system. You're not coming up with any solutions for your school ventilation systems or your school water. What's wrong with you, planet? What is your big fucking malfunction? You have an event. Just because you can't see it, don't mean there's not an absurd amount of documentation. An undeniable amount of documentation. It's undeniable. And not taking it serious, not appreciating the enormity of the issue is the fucking problem. And I guess that's just the way the world is it? I mean, 1 in a billion is going to come out and bash the fucking industry or something. So maybe there's 6 people out there honest. Worldwide. There's over 1,000 public relation firms, for goodness sakes, dedicated to silence people like me and you. They need to be challenged. 80% of the residents tested have radioactive iodine in the thyroid. 87,000 microsieverts. But why would you count it in millisieverts or microsieverts? Why would you do that when it's physical fucking atoms? Like, that's not how you're supposed to count this kind of damage. So every atom, so you think of 87,000 microsieverts, and think that each microsievert is at least 700 cesium atoms. So 700 times 87,000 physical atoms. Your body attacks every one of them for the rest of your life with white blood cells. And if they're in the bones, and they will be, and if they're in your thyroid glands or your children's or the animals or insects or birds or mammals and animals, they're producing radioactive hormones and radioactive stem cells. And so over a decade or two, we never did have many whales. Oh, we never did have many insects. Oh, we never did have that many birds. We never did. You know, the last time I saw a flock of migratory birds, at least 7 years ago, anywhere, from the west coast to the east coast of North America. It's been 7 years at least. 8 years. Since I've seen a small flock. I'm in a place where there's supposed to be 46 million migratory birds every year haven't showed up for the last 4 years. And nobody's making a fuss about it. Oh, we never did have any birds, Dana. Okay, earthquake. 5.2 quake hits Japan, Fukushima, nearby areas. I was like, what am I looking at? I see the X right here. Well, Fukushima's on the coastline, not the interior. The tectonic plates are about where my thumb is to, see? Right, the tectonic plates will do that. And displace through 200 or 300 miles of the fault line. And then that'll cause a tsunami displacement of the water and result in a very powerful and high-speed tsunami. So when I seen this, I was like, oh, shit. This is not good. And this has the same attributes as the Noto Peninsula had on January the 1st of 2024, which was a 3,000 to 4,000 year old fault line, right? That right here, that ripped open and went right through the Noto Peninsula, Ishikawa Prefecture, went right through it, 150-mile fissure, where it ripped apart the highways. It turned highways into cliff drop-offs. It caused 6,600 houses just to go in Niigata Prefecture, rather, north of the Ishikawa, the Noto Peninsula, to sink into the ground through liquefaction. That's up by a nuclear power plant they're just opening up. But this Noto Peninsula had 1,500 landslides. It had a tsunami, and it lifted the Earth up 13 feet for 87, including the Shika nuclear power plant coastline, up 13 feet. It's not just like a strip. It's a huge chunk of the coast and communities. 13 feet in the air for 78 miles. When was the last time you heard of the coastline doing that? They hid that away from you pretty good. We covered it extensively. It appears the Shika nuclear power plant had lost a lot of the inventories of the fuel pools. We can't prove it because we have no documentation. Even though, we have serious documentation that they had an event there, they just won't acknowledge anything. It's a death blow for the nuclear industry worldwide if the truth comes out. If not, they have another major accident. They had to work very difficult, very hard times and brutal amount of money to get back into the game again. So you had an earthquake of 5.2, and they're very deceptive, very deceitful, and very dishonest in their reportings. And I'll show you examples that come up in a minute. 5.2 jolted Fukushima Prefecture. No tsunami warning has been issued. Now, why would you? The fucking thing is right in the middle of the country. So they're very deceitful, they're very dishonest. The quake measured a lower 5 on the Japanese seismic intensity scale of 7, a lower 5, which is a 5.5 out of a 7. Because their scale is 1, 1.5, 2, it's 0.5, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 6, 6.5, and 7. No 7.5. So on the scale it's 10, or 14. And so you got to divide 7 into 10 with the international scale, the Richter scale, at 1.428, which is 1.43, right? And you multiply that by the 5.5, but I multiplied it by 5.3. I downplayed it a bit. So 7.6, 7.57, 7.6 on the international scale. So I'm assuming it was far away from any communities. That's why, because we're not seeing a lot of damage. But it has the same attributes as the Noto Peninsula, where they went from having 20 earthquakes a year to having 18,000 little small earthquakes a year for 2 years, and then they had a serious rupture of a fault line that's been dormant for 3,000 to 4,000 years. Brutal damage. Hundreds of people died. They said it occurred at a depth of 4 kilometers. This is the original reporting. I think it was settled on 10 kilometers. It was a very shallow earthquake. And it was really close to this community, which is a nuclear wasteland, I might add. All of these are nuclear wastelands, particularly Koriyama, for instance. So 1.2 to 1.428, you multiply it by the 5.5. I multiplied by 5.3. So that's where the quake, you can see where Fukushima City is marked off. Fukushima's on the coastline, the nuclear disease factory. Fukushima City is a brutal nuclear wasteland. Every house there is entitled to be decontaminated, but you can't decontaminate a structure from radiation. You have to remove the structure and put it in a nuclear holding site forever. The quake, which occurred at a depth of 4 kilometers beneath the Fukushima inland area, and these were the communities they were talking about. So that's the rough area, far away from the ocean. Now remember, when I'm reading about these stories, first thing I'm doing is gather up every story I can find, and I'm going to read every single one of them. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to highlight the least amount that I can, because it's so difficult to get through these subjects. Just enough to tell the story or the law. I look for the consensus. 7.57. No abnormalities detected at Fukushima Daini plant. The Daini is the ugly twin brother of the Fukushima Daiichi. They're exact replicas. And so when you see these connotations where they come out and there's nothing to worry about, you can't quantify that. It takes many days to inspect these massive sites to quantify that type of assertion. The agency initially said the quake had a magnitude of 5.0 with a focus 10 kilometers underground, but it's in the interior. And when you hear the rest of these stories come up right away, you're going to start realizing that this is an old fault line we're talking about. My last show, as usual, got after 12 hours, always gets longer. So 158.16 to 158.21. So it's got an extra 5 seconds longer, which is just basically typical what they've been doing with this site. Now, I don't see that on other live shows. They're always the exact same thing 12, 13, 14 hours later. So, earthquake, now let's go back to 2018 for a minute. The Akito earthquake was an island in northern Japan. I'll show you a map coming up. And this was reported, but we didn't really see these pictures. These are the pictures I dug up after when I realized what they had done to us. So the landslides, it was incredible landslides. So when you start looking at both sides of the mountain, you see both sides of the mountains had massive landslides. There was 22,000 people in the rescue efforts. So because there was a lot going on at the time, and they came out and claimed it was a 6.6 or something. I'll show you this next click. So these landslides, this is close. I'm going to show you far away pictures in a second. That's close up. And this is far away. Have you ever seen an earthquake that dropped the payloads of every mountain? And when it comes to earthquakes, is that not the biggest earthquake you ever saw that done this? And done this over enormous area. So their Wikipedia 2018 Akito Eastern earthquake, the 6th of September 2018, they covered up successfully. It registered a 6.7 magnitude and a maximum intensity of 7 on the Shindu scale, which instead of saying on the scale of 7, the Shindu, intensity of 7 on the 7 scale. That's a 7 out of a 7 earthquake. That's the same thing as a 10 out of a 10 earthquake. And so, how come if you've never seen those pictures before, you've heard of landslides. These are not landslides. This has dropped the payload of all the mountains. So registered a maximum of 6.7. A 6.7 earthquake does not drop the fucking payloads of every mountain. It doesn't drop the payloads of every mountain, okay? That's a 10 earthquake does that, isn't it? And on the Japanese scale, they acknowledged it was a 7 on the Shindu scale, which is only 7. But they didn't have the courage or the fortitude to put 7 out of a 7, or did they? Right? They registered a maximum of 6.7 magnitude. They just put a fucking M there. And then when the Shindu scale, they actually come out and call it, instead of calling it an S scale, they call it the Shindu scale. Because that's what low-life, degenerate, pro-nuclear scum fucking does. Drop the payloads on every fucking mountain, as far as you can see. There's 130 aftershocks. That's not a 6.7 magnitude earthquake. That's a 10 out of a 10 fucking magnitude earthquake, right? And look how much it fucking lifted up the highway, for instance, the roads. How it peeled off the fucking roads and just threw everything in every direction. And look at these landslides up close. Because it's hard to appreciate what we're talking about. Like, that's the spill at the bottom of it. But when you look at the mountains, they lost their payloads. Have you ever seen anything like that? Which is a 9.5. So if you take the Shindu scale of 7, 6.7, because that's probably what it was on the Shindu scale, was a 6.7, which would have worked out to a 9.5. So the Tomari nuclear power plant turns out to be right there. The earthquake turns out to be on land right there. Right? So there's not a big discrepancy in the distance. Because we're talking about earthquakes. that are so fucking big they drop the payloads on all the mountains, on every side of the mountains. That's a fucking man's earthquake right there. That's a man's earthquake, yeah? That's a real fucking earthquake. It's not some wussy pussy fucking earthquake. That's a bad fucking earthquake right there. Have you ever heard tell of a fucking earthquake dropped the payloads in all the mountains? They hid that one away on you, didn't they? So when we're talking about a magnitude 5.2 that's also on land, and they're saying expect lots of aftershocks. There's more to the picture than they're telling us. And then they show you a road that's no traffic whatsoever, no people. Issues warnings about potential aftershocks of similar intensity in the coming week, which is this week. Residents have been urged to remain vigilant against landslides, avalanches, and falling snow. But certainly, and they do got brutal snow going on. Landslides and avalanches. So what are they suggesting? Are they suggesting this is another... Because remember the Noto, the Ishikawa Peninsula's earthquake in January the 1st, which is probably that same fucking fault line, that's been dormant for over 3,000 years, caused 1,600 landslides. Massive avalanches that cut off the ability for rescuers to go in there for weeks, because apparently they don't got helicopters in Japan. We mocked them for almost a fucking month. Well, why don't you use some helicopters and go bring them fucking food? Generators, you pieces of shit. Right, we burned them, didn't we, for at least 10, 14 days. And those videos are on my site. You can come back and watch it. I fucking stuck it to them. Because why would, if Shika nuclear power plant didn't have a meltdown, they would have sent the helicopters in, I'm pretty sure. But that must have been their only reason. Why else wouldn't he send helicopters in that fucking place for the first couple of weeks? And even then, they could have sent in hovercrafts. Because the coastline rose up 13 feet for a section, but there was other areas they could have landed on. They could have brought helicopters in the first 2 weeks. They didn't have to abandon everybody for 2 fucking weeks. Unless there was a nuclear meltdown or something. The Shika fled. We still got no new pictures. Any pictures at all since it happened. Well, epicenter located at a depth of 4 kilometers. This is in the Azu area. And I showed you pictures of where that was too. Maps of it. Registered seismic intensity of lower 5 in Japan's 7-point scale. So like this one, you gotta take into consideration of their legacy of lying. Their brutal legacy of being scumbag degenerates and not being honest. They really are the lowest forms of life. They really are. Seven-point scale, which works out to be a 1.428. When you divide 7 into the Richter scale, 1.428, then you get 1.428 multiplied by 5.5. I don't know, 5.3. Be a bit conservative. Tremors of the intensity 3 were felt across parts of Fukushima, I can't even pronounce that name for some reason. Guma Niigata Prefecture. Niigata is right over by the Noto Peninsula, the Ishikawa Prefecture, where they actually got one of the world's biggest nuclear plants. They're just starting up again. Where 6,600 houses sank and were destroyed through liquefaction during the Noto earthquake of January 1st, 2024, last year, a little over 1 year ago. Seismic activities have surged in the region since Tuesday, with 15 aftershocks of intensity 1 or greater recorded. Hi, everybody. Hugs for everybody. Hope you're doing well. Make sure to give us a thumbs up if you make it this far. Strong earthquakes jolt Fukushima Prefecture early on January 23rd. Now, I was at this show ready to go on Thursday night, but I fell asleep. I burnt out. I was out working all day, and I was frozen all day, out working on equipment, and I just burnt out. I burnt out on Thursday. I woke up around 10 after 10, and I was like, I'm going to get up and do the show. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to get up and do the show. I know I was fucking burnt out. And a rough weekend. Just burnt out, eh? Been at this a long time. And I'm hardcore too. I'm all in there, man. And so local reports indicated maximum intensity recorded at a lower 5 lower particularly felt strongest. So a 5 lower is a 5.5, which works out to be a 7.57. But it's on land, right? We're talking about on land. Sorry, we're talking about on land. This is absurd.
I don't seem to be able to get your current location.
I never said that. Come on. Fortunately, there were no tsunami warnings issued. No, because you're right in the middle of the fucking country. They don't tell them that. And they should say, well, because it's in the middle of the country, there's no... Why would you... It's in the middle of the country. You really think fucking people are so stupid they can't work that out on their own? Right? Show them the picture. People are gonna know there's no fucking tsunami. Despite the high intensity, of the quake. So it was very intense. So it clearly wasn't in any of the communities, because you know what a shallow earthquake is going to do, right? Community response to the earthquakes become increasingly urgent following the strong quake. Japan's urges residents to check evacuation routes. Yeah, that's what, like Shika had the earthquake. Shika had 22,000 earthquakes or something. Small ones in the 2 years previous to the major fault line rupturing on January 1st last year. Instead of moving people out, because they knew this was going to happen, like when you got that kind of activity, there's not a person out there in the scientific community that didn't know a big one was right there. And they just left him there and sacrificed him. It's such a coward, such a stupid country. Pretending that they have some kind, that they're somehow stoic is absurd. They're the very fucking opposite. Right? They live in a fucking fantasy, their whole fucking existence. Continuous reminder of nature's unpredictability. You built it on a fucking fault line. Japan's on a fault line. You put the reactors right on the fault line, right in front of, 40 miles away from the tectonic fucking plates that are always moving, always going to have major earthquakes, and always going to have major fucking tsunamis. And they put the reactor cores, the fuel pools at the top of the fucking buildings. So when it finally did go wrong, you took everything with it. 4 decades of reactor cores gone. Literally the stupidest thing imaginable. And the people that designed it and built it are still alive and should be in a fucking dungeon in some jail for the rest of their friggin' lives. Or worse. Especially seniors, expressing their unease about the frequent seismic occurrence. One villager lamented. I mean, that's you chastising them when you use that connotation. You know that, right? Scumbags to fucking write something like that. It has been concerning with so many earthquakes occurring recently. The quake on January 3rd marked one of the notable seismic events for the region since last experienced similar tremors approximately 10 months prior. Yeah, I missed that one too, apparently. The pattern of seismic activity highlights the persistent geological phenomenon present beneath Fukushima. Highlights it. that Fukushima is a nightmare. You got 4 melted reactors, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Possible common spent fuel pool melted down, most likely. And maybe reactor 6 issues. You have 8 fuel pools that have lost their entire 4 decades of inventories, which is at least 32 reactor cores. Gone, blew up, caught fire, melted down, blew up, and caught fire, and no specific order, but over several days lost their entire inventories, all of them. It was an event. We had an event that you can't see it or smell it or hear it or feel it or taste it, but you can fucking well see the results of it if you're looking in the right places. Massive heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome, schizophrenia. Am I ringing a few fucking bells? A massive spike in it, right? Where do you think all that came from? Although there was no reports of injuries or significant property damage, because it wasn't in the communities itself, was it? Because if you have, and they say it in a very intensive earthquake, it has all the connotations. It's on land. It's very shallow. If that's in the community, it'd knock down every fucking telephone pole in the community. Endpoint 5.2 quake hits Fukushima Prefecture. A 5.2 earthquake on the magnitude scale, the Richter scale, doesn't get this kind of prominence. But a big one does, like a 7.5, because that's what you get when you look at the real 5.5 scale on the Shindu scale and you do the conversion. Intensity of lower 5 on the Japanese, which is a 5.5. There's no 5.4, 5.3, 5.2, 5.1 on the Shindu scale. It's 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7. That's it. There's 7. And increments of halves. Which, if I used the 5.3, brings it to a 7.6. Less than 10 kilometers deep. Again, they're very deceptive because almost all of their earthquakes, they'll give you a latitude or a longitude, but they'll give you one or the other, but won't give you both. And they use multiple communities to describe the same earthquake. Never said how close to the community, was it in the community? They just said in that direction. You see remember, in 2018 they fucking hid this earthquake from you. Don't think they won't do it again. Don't think they haven't done it already again to you. I think the Shika scale, the Shika nuclear power plant, January the 1st, 2024, the Noto Ishikawa Prefecture earthquake of 2024 is showing you that they're going to lie to you every single time, don't it? They're not really good at anything else. No abnormalities at the Fukushima Daiichi Daini nuclear disease factory. The company also said there was no change in figures and monitoring post that measures radiation levels around the nuclear plant. But first off, you have to be insane to believe anything they tell you about a nuclear power plant. But the perpetual lies we caught them at. The urgency updated its estimates for the quake's magnitude and focus depth from a 5.0 and a 10 kilometers respectively. Right in the middle of the prefecture. Like it's right, it's right in the center of that part of Japan. We've never seen that there, and we've been looking at this for a long time. We've never seen that there before. So that's an old fault line that's going to rupture, clearly. Is that going to be as bad as the Noto Peninsula? Is that going to reach all the way down to the nuclear power plants? Look at what they've covered up some of the craziest earthquakes already in Fukushima, off the coastline of Fukushima. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, there was an earthquake there where they caused so much damage to 5,500 schools that they put insurance claims in. We got that from the insurance companies, right? That's some serious. But they had to go past Fukushima to damage 5,500 schools. it had to go past a very, very fragile remains that if you shake them good enough, you'll start another chain reaction, criticality, and a possible massive amount of radioactive fallout again. There's 4 reactors that are completely destroyed. Japanese warns of aftershocks. Potential aftershocks of similar magnitude over the coming week, urging residents, the victims that they left in a nuclear wasteland, to stay vigilant against the landslides and avalanches. And Guma is right up by Tokyo. Right, Guma's up right there. Look. Tokyo's right here, but Guma's way over there. So it was a 5 in Guma. And Tohoku, look how far away that is. Within 15 aftershocks of intensity 1s or greater recorded since Tuesday. So is there a fault line that's going to open up there? Wasteland Japan. Right, there was another earthquake at 8:09 a.m. of a 5.5 earthquake at 10 kilometer depth. That only got one mention. That's a significant earthquake, right? When it's on land. It's very strange days indeed. China says no abnormalities detected in Fukushima seawater. So they've only looked at the water since August the 24th of last year. The reactors blew up, caught fire, blew up, caught fire, melted down. In 2011, does anybody really think China don't know that happened? So like China, Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan are hoodwinking the Asian community worldwide. Right? That's what's going on. By talking about tritium of all things. Everything is tritiated now thanks to the nuclear industry and that pulse event from Fukushima. Chinese paper, treated water from Fukushima nuclear plant is no abnormalities. What the fuck are you talking about? You're talking about nuclear meltdowns that you can't filter that. The filter's so radioactive you can never fucking change it. You're talking about multiple sieverts per fucking liter. 3 sieverts is a lethal dose. You can't even walk past the hoses or around the hoses or over the hoses without getting a lethal dose or pipes. Because the pipes need to be multiple feet thick to protect anybody in proximity walking past it. And they're not. My favorite story. Japan is preparing to use rice reserves. Rice reserves amid soaring prices. Japan Foreign Minister on Friday said the government's plan to release its stockpiled rice for the stockpiled rice. So they show you the picture of all these bags of rice, 1-ton bags of rice, but they got 30 million 1-ton fucking bags of radioactive fallout they picked up. 30 million. And they're getting a lot of that rice is coming from those fucking farmlands where they filled up these 1-ton bags to. The world is crazy. You got this one opportunity in human history where the whole world got a voice and nobody's willing to fucking use it. They're going to let this moment just disappear and then we're going to lose this opportunity. It's just frightening to me. For the first time, Japan Foreign Minister on Friday said the government's plan to release, this is a story from Friday, January 24th, 4 days ago, Friday. First time to alleviate the distribution shortages of the price of crop has soared since last summer. For the first time. Well, actually, no. In 2013, Fukushima rice to be brought by the government and mixed into Japan's rice reserves. And the Japanese national government will buy up 40,000 tons of the fucking radioactive Fukushima rice, including rice from the evacuation zone. That should fucking just terrify you. That should leave you mortified. That should fucking blow your fucking mind, is what that should. Including rice from the nuclear wasteland. We're going to cover that story right after this one. For the first time. No, it's not your fucking first time. In 2013, we had other stories besides 2013 and June the 19th, by the way. So dirtbag, scumbag, degenerate fucking media coming out and saying it's the first time that they ever used the rice reserves. It's simply not fucking true, is it? They got rid of all the rice from the nuclear wasteland for the first year and shipped a lot of that to Canada. Canada removed all restrictions in 93 days, while 55 countries banned the fucking rice or the food from the entire 14 prefectures, not just Fukushima, for a decade. For the first time. And so whoever wrote that, whatever guy wrote that, like kick him right in the fucking... They'll figure it out, I'm sure. To alleviate distribution shortages as they poison the biggest amount of tourists they've ever had there. 2024 was the biggest tourist year yet. They surpassed their frightening fucking numbers that we talked about for years. Japan, well, we'll just bring in so many tourists, they'll eat all the rice. We'll put it in the supermarkets and the 7-Elevens, they can never get away from it. And feed it to the fucking stupid tourists, right? And Canadians, of course. The nuclear industry has just destroyed Canada. It's destroyed now. Everybody's sick. Obesity rates in fucking Japan almost doubled in the first year alone, which is a sign of a serious radioactive brain damage. You see a massive rise in obesity after a nuclear event. Fukushima was an event. It's not just rice. That's the frightening part of this story. Has soared since last summer. And conditions the government can buy it back in the future. Yeah, from anybody but Fukushima or those 14 prefectures where the food was banned by 55 countries for a fucking decade. Hopefully, but that's not going to be true, is it? We have an obligation to supply food to the consumers stable, said Eto. Look, you fucker. Every organism in Fukushima Prefecture is contaminated with radiation that the worm's excrement was at 1.4 million atoms. And they're only talking about cesium-137, gamma, for goodness sakes, 60 kilometers from the meltdown. They're growing food within 2 miles of the fucking meltdown. They never stopped growing it. They never stopped harvesting it. They never stopped shipping it. This industry is going to wipe out every species and you. And you're just going to let them do it? You're going to sit there and fucking take it? You're going to sit there and let them get away with it? I could wreck this fucking industry if somebody would, if you had a, not somebody, but a foundation would come out and work with me. We'd have a 24-hour news channel going up and we'd fucking eat this industry. In 1 year, we'd fucking wreck this industry permanently. They could never recover. Greenpeace fucking sold you out pro-nuclear. They're to control opposition. Beyond Nuclear stabbed you in the fucking back that many times. You have no idea. Helen Caldicott and Ernie Gunnarsson and Christopher Busby slit your fucking throat so many times. Dirty bastards, eh? And they were pumped out by all the fucking media. Greenpeace raised like over $100 million a fucking year. You'll find their donation buttons up on all the mainstream media sites. You really fucking think they're an actual activist fucking group? That the gobblish, the military-industrial complex media is actually going to put them on a pedestal to oppose them? And the people that works in the industry, we know now, these are just degenerates. These are just the lowest fucking forms of life. Particularly the public relations, they're despicable. It should be illegal to describe them as humans. The government's planning revising its guidelines and stabilizing rice prices after discussion of a Farm Ministry Council meeting for January 31st. As of the end of July, the government has reserved totals of 910,000 tonnes, 2 billion pounds, is it? A little under 2 billion? No, a little over 2 billion, I think it is. Dangerously high levels of radiation detected in rice from date 60 kilometers from the Meltdowns, Japan Times. Cesium find makes date rice off limits, Japan Times. Now Japan's time, like, nothing got out of Fukushima. Given the law stipulates the stockpile rice can be used when productions of the crop fall sharply, when the radioactive, feed them the radioactive food, when all that's gone, we'll give them some of the stockpile rice, which was mixed with rice from the nuclear wasteland, from the evacuation zones. And I'll show you that in a few minutes. From the evacuation zones. The reserves can be used on conditions the rice is brought back. Of course, it's going to be brought back. Rice leaf concentrate radioactivity is 600 times greater than the water used for its cultivation. So it bioaccumulates radiation like mushrooms. Literally one of the worst fucking things you can eat. By a 50-pound bag, make sure everybody got heart problems, liver problems, lung problems. Forever. I just don't know why the world won't fight back, and I get disappointed. There's just a couple of people. That's it. It's absolutely fucking terrifying. Like, listen, like, I don't see myself any better than anybody else. I do see myself as the person who had done what he done, got the documentation to make sure that the industry couldn't say that it didn't exist and they didn't know what happened and they didn't have any evidence. We can deny him that. And then became very prolific, very loud. So to make sure that everybody knew who the fuck I was. And then they can't look anybody in the face and say, well, we don't know Dana Durnford. They can't fucking do it. And pretending it's not happening, and covering up what's happening is the worst type of human conceivable. Anybody that would do something like that is literally one of the lowest fucking forms of life imaginable. They really got to be a despicable piece of shit to do it. They really got to be a worthless fucking inbreed to do something like that. You really got to be the lowest form of life to cover up or censor what's going on. You really got to be the most moron imaginable, the biggest moron in human history. Ultimately, they're going to be described as the biggest fucking morons in human history. They'll be described as the village idiots forever. When the truth comes out, because everything has a digital record now, and eventually their names will come out. And we don't. This is not an opinion. This is fact. The average price of brown rice in 2024 and sold to wholesalers by suppliers was $152 American per 60 kilograms, a record high since comparable data became available in 1990. It's like Russian roulette. And think about how cruel they are to the fucking kids, the victims of society, that are the kids, the most vulnerable of society. Only 10% of the school lunches in Fukushima were tested for radiation. The officials didn't even know how the testing equipment was available, let alone how to, like, the school staff can't operate the Geiger counter properly, particularly in a nuclear wasteland, because you give a Geiger counter a big dose and it needs to go back to the manufacturer to get recalibrated. Japanese mayor says students are gaining knowledge. The mayor are gaining knowledge by eating radioactive food in school lunches. They're gaining knowledge by poisoning themselves. Like in a normal society, you throw that fucking guy off a skyscraper and the world couldn't give a fuck. He's worse than the predators, right? Don't be a chicken, another mayor tells parents who are concerned their children are eating radioactive lunches. You go to Fukushima, get some real radioactive food and bring it back and make them fucking eat it and get rid of them. That's what you should do with that piece of shit. Shocking that the officials made it mandatory to use Fukushima rice from the nuclear wasteland in school lunches. That's not shocking. That's fucking revolting and criminal. And that the people that do it and the people that covered it up and the people that allowed it for it to happen, at some point we got to hold them accountable. Don't let these fucking bastards, under any circumstances, after the genocide is over, don't let them fucking get away with it. Fukushima rice to be bought by the government and mixed into Japan's rice. And the journalists are like, woohoo, big money for me, baby. The Jap national government will buy 40,000 tons of radioactive rice from the nuclear wasteland itself, including rice from the evacuation zone. Including rice from the evacuation zone, as long as it passes the 100 atoms a kilogram limit for radiation. It used to be 0.1 per kilogram pre-Fukushima. They actually raised it to 500 originally, but you can't test it because they're only testing for gamma. And the alphas and the betas will drown out the gamma anyway. The singles, right? The pulse of energy almost at the speed of light. The curium isotopes will drown out the plutonium, for goodness sakes. And the biggest byproduct of radiated fuel rods is the curium isotopes. You really got to worry about the strongest isotope drowning out the lesser isotopes per se. They're all dangerous and brutal to your immune system, brutal to your health and everything, every species. But the highest one will drown out the singles of the weaker ones, right? You can't read tritium in Fukushima because of all the gammas and the alphas and the neutrons and the betas and the x-rays. You can't fucking read a tritium single. The International Atomic Energy Agency or China or anybody else talking about tritium, these people should be put on a list to be prosecuted down the road. And suggesting that only 100 atoms a kilogram is being checked is absurd. You can't just have cesium, because that's what they're talking about. The rice will be mixed with rice from other regions in Japan and resold as rice reserves. And they're harvesting it, including rice from the evacuation zone from the nuclear fucking wasteland where they picked up 30 million one-ton bags in just 3% of the land. This effectively makes all rice in Japan starting this fall suspect for radiation, along with any food products made from it, such as rice crackers and sake. Japan in 2014 or 15 opened a sake shop from Fukushima Prefecture. The Japanese government, the Fukushima Prefectural government, opened a sake shop in New York City. The Fukushima Prefectural government. And sent the radioactive sake because nobody would buy it, and whatever was rotten, they just let it ferment into alcohol, right? Like you're talking about 30 million one-ton bags and just 3% of the land in a single prefecture. That wasn't the only place they were picking up one-ton bags. The water filtration facilities in the first year had over 50,000 one-ton bags of radioactive sediment from the water reclamation facilities, from the water filtration facilities. They couldn't get rid of the ashes from the incinerators anywhere in the entire country because it was too radioactive, which means every kilogram of garbage they burned was a dirty bomb, was the animosity equivalent of a dirty bomb in radioactive fallout that covers the whole planet ultimately. It's an industry. I'm not doing these shows constantly every chance I can, as much as I can, for something to do because it's fucking entertaining. I'm doing it because the issue can be addressed and we won't address it. And we got to address it. There is no other option. We have to deal with this. And that means the whole industry is going to have to get a fat lip with a black eye every fucking day for the rest of their lives. That's a pretty fucking good deal in their books if they don't realize the truth of what this planet will fucking do away with every one of them if they realize what they really got done. Making matters worse, Japan has strict limits on rice importation. So Japan is forcing their own people to either eat it or make products with it and sell it to somebody else. Rice imports to Japan are banned, except for rice and processed goods. So rice imports this is absurdness. Forcing the kids to eat it in schools and forcing everybody else to eat that rice. Because imports are restricted. Like how demented and sadistic and twisted. I mean, yes, you had 865,000 extra cancers in the first year. And cancer is just one of the many diseases and illnesses and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries and illnesses that'll manifest. Like when you're talking about everybody producing radioactive hormones and radioactive stem cells, everybody, every bird, every insect, everything else, you're talking about no fucking immune system, and that Pandora's box is now real. It's the real fucking deal. And paper masks and paper fucking suits can't protect you in a nuclear wasteland, I can tell you that much. And we badgered them so much in 2017, they actually came out with a story that went around a little bit, saying that they burnt 7,000 suits every day in the incinerators at Fukushima. Because we were saying, well, where's all the millions of paper suits they got? Excuse me. If you're not angry, there's something fucking wrong with you. Go back and start watching the video again. Fukushima rice being used in convenience store food. It's been used everywhere in North America, everywhere in the United States, everywhere in Canada. That's for fucking sure. Any Anglo-Saxon country. So you might want to avoid the convenience store and eats in Japan. You want to avoid Japan. For goodness sakes, don't go to Japan. Don't let your loved ones go to Japan. Even if it means you got to get into a fist fight with them, don't let them go to Japan. You remember that? What was that movie, They Live? But he finally they beat the shit out of each other, and he puts the glasses on his face, and like, oh shit, it's fucking real. Oh crap. That's what everybody needs. Everybody needs to get educated. Like the idea of doing educational programs for years was to get a bunch of people out there having this conversation with the documentation that are fucking smart and intelligent and articulated and can handle any debate. And the people that watch my shows regularly, there's not a fucking person on the planet, not an academic or scientist or journalist on the planet that is going to get one over on them. I can tell you that much. And everybody can. It's not that easy. It's not that hard to fucking learn if you're provided with all the documentation, all the evidence, all the pictures, and I get better every show. So you might want to avoid the convenience store eats in Japan. You couldn't drag me to Japan. There's zero possibility I would go to Japan. I'm not fucking stupid. It's a nuclear wasteland. I mean, they're harvesting food right off the nuclear meltdown site. They're growing food right in the nuclear meltdown site. Contaminated rice piles up. Vegetables from the evacuation zone and over-limit towns reopen. 2013, nuclear wasteland. They were so desperate to move people back into a nuclear wasteland. There's nowhere in Japan you can't find 1-ton bags of radiation if you look. Officials have lifted the farming ban from Tamura of radioactive fallout, an area that's been part of the evacuation zone until recently. Just because they lifted it's an evacuation zone because it's a nuclear wasteland. And once it's a nuclear wasteland, it's always a nuclear wasteland. And you can pick up 30 million 1-ton bags, but you ain't going to fucking change that. The reactors are still melting down. They might never stop melting down. I get too passionate, I know. I get too caught up in it, I know. You would too if you'd done the research expeditions I've done. How do you fucking turn that off, see? How do you forget that all the species are gone? How do you pretend that never happens? Never happened. How do you... I can't do that, right? An area that's been part of the evacuation zone until recently. Lifted the farming ban. The farming ban. right, lifted the farming ban. And at least 2 farmers are planning on planting crops. Oh, fuck, we can go back and grow food. Yeah, we picked up 30 million one-ton bags of radiation. Oh, that's wonderful. Like, for some reason, they think that just everything falls out of the sky, lands on the ground, you can put it in a fucking bag. This is absurdness. They found the 2 stupidest farmers they could, put them on a pedestal, gave them a megaphone, and this is what they said to the media. The radiation levels in Timor are lower than Koriyama and Fukushima City. Just hang on one second. Let's see if I can find it. Well, first off, Koriyama and Fukushima City are brutal numbers. I'll show it to you in a second. No one should be in Korea, and everybody in Koriyama, 300,000 people. Every house there, every building, every school, every shop, everything is entitled to be decontaminated. They just don't have enough homeless and destitute and victims of society or immigrants who speak the language to do it. Because academics are not going there. Fuck. There's no spoil. Bear with me. Oh, I know what I've done wrong. Just gotta put tank in. I don't know. Gotta relabel everything or something. What's going on here? Bear with me. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I just gotta go and relabel everything. We can find it, I'll relabel it, but okay, well that'll work here. Here's Koriyama City. And what you're looking at, the third line from the left is you got district population, average disposition of 137 cesium. You can't just have 137 cesium. But what they're talking about per square meter on the soil. And so each of the communities, you can see the population is the next number, and then this line here is the atoms per square meter. Koriyama City is 162,000. These are huge numbers. These 185, not 1,000, but 185 was an evacuation zone before Fukushima. Let me see if I get my act together here. I can do a bit better. Okay, let's go back to that. TAMURA. Let's see. I probably got it here somewhere. TUR. There it is. Tomora City. 33,000 atoms of cesium, gamma, which pulses energy 600 feet every second per square meter. So if you have something, if every square meter can pulse energy 600 feet, then that's one great big first off, everything's getting a full body X-ray. And you're talking about saturation levels. And so all of these communities are in a nuclear wasteland to your left. And you can see the population is the first line to your left. I'm facing the screen here, but to my right over there. The first one is the community, the next one is the population, and then this line, number 3 line, is the atoms per square meter. Right, the third line. So when you look at all these communities, you threw away all these communities and every victim in the community. You can see the population of each community. They actually threw them under the bus. Every one of them said, fuck you. Said, you're worthless. We don't give a fuck about you. As long as the nuclear industry comes out smelling like shit. Doesn't come out smelling like shit, I should say. I mean, they picked up 30 million one-ton bags. That was the homeless and the destitute, the victims of society, immigrants who don't speak the language, of radioactive fallout, and only 3% of the land in a single prefecture. But the food was banned in 55 countries in 14 prefectures, rather. Most of Tamura is over the 1 millisievert a year threshold. Using 1 millisievert and microsieverts is despicable. These are despicable. Because like the numbers are not in millisieverts, they're in physical atoms. And the BQ, the Becquerel, is the pulse of energy at the speed of light every second. So each atom is going to at least a pulse of energy every second. So Tamura is 33,000 atoms. So they're saying a millisievert, which is 1,000 microsieverts, is equal to 33,000. It's a lot fucking more than that. And why would you use that? Because you're talking about radioactive fallout. You're not talking about fuel pellets close to the reactors or something like that. You're talking about actual physical atoms, radioactive fallout. They didn't pick up 30 million one-ton bags of millisieverts. They picked it up, or microsieverts. They picked up 30 million one-ton bags at 100,000 atoms per kilogram, minimum. That was the criteria, the minimum criteria for filling up the 30 million one-ton bags. Oh, and this exposure was set by the International Committee on Radiation Protection, the ICRP, which is the United Nations. You got the ICRP, you got UNSCLEAR, you got IRPA, you got International Atomic Energy Agency, and a few others, and they all come in and support each other, but they're all the same military-industrial complex UN. Think about if you took CNN. Everybody likes CNN, right? Don't answer that. So let's take 10 of their most popular journalists, popular as in scumbags, and so you got 10 journalists, and they all come out one after another and say this story, that everything's good, and blah, 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 about radioactive fallout and nuclear wasteland. You'll say, well, they're 10 scumbags from CNN. That's how you should approach the international or the United Nations. Like the ICRP, by the way, Geraldine Thomas and Kathleen Higley both are part of the ICRP, the International Committee on Radiation Protection. They're both degenerate monsters, clearly. We've covered their narratives extensively. These are disgusting parasites. And they're the ones that are appointed by the government every time, are the most loathsome, despicable, hateful, disgusting, traitorous, murderous monsters are getting the key positions. There's 100 of them, 100 gray hair ones of them. They all have multiple pins, right? Set by the ICRP and being used as a benchmark in Japan, which is a total betrayal. Was Japan too stupid to come up with their own fucking numbers? Why would you use something connected to 195 militaries? How can you quantify pretending that that is a reliable source? Everything's good. Have a nice day, stupid. You can see where Tamura is too. Tamura is fucking closer than Koriyama. So Tamura would actually have more radioactive fallout than Koriyama. Koriyama is fucking brutal, as I just showed you earlier. And this I was zoomed in on Fukushima Koriyama, right? So I changed it to a satellite picture, and then I said, "Oh, let me zoom in on the nuclear power plant." Seeing as I'm here, these are such scumbags. It's hard to appreciate it for the average person. So Japan says they got 1,000 tanks, right? First off, the tanks were all filled, they said, in 2013, according to Rupert Winfield Hayes from the BBC, from the aquifers below the plant. But see these little tiny fucking tanks here? That's part of the 1,000 tanks. There's not 1,000 large tanks. The tanks are empty, by the way. If you fill up the tanks, you can't build any more tanks on the site. You're talking about over 1 million sieverts per tank. The high range and average radiation ranges put the annual exposures over the ICPR limits. The ICPR are just the worst. I would challenge them legally if I was in a position to do it. I wouldn't hesitate for a second. We would litigate them. We would get information of freedom of information. And we already got a massive amount, by the way. 4 million. I'm linked in my description. I'm linked to 4 million emails from the Nuclear Regulatory Agency. There were a lot of it was redacted. But we done a video last week, right? Or the week before. We done 2 videos the week before on the freedom of information releases. There was just a single foil, and you had the head of the non-regulatory commission at that time in Congress acknowledging there was lethal doses at the site, lethal doses. And then we got Harvard University professors acknowledging lethal doses in the nearby communities from the plumes. Lethal doses going through your community. The invisible fog, the invisible mist coming through your community that is snuffing out everything. There's 3,000 people ended up in the hospital from the communities. And they try to blame it on stress from evacuation. But we've seen millions and millions, over 10 million at a time, evacuate from supercell typhoons, supercell cyclones, supercell hurricanes, post-Fukushima, by the way, that we've never seen pre-Fukushima. And we'd never seen any statistics like that. Way more people evacuated than evacuated from Fukushima. We didn't see the health issues. They covered it up successfully. The government standard for reopening a nuclear wasteland is the level has to be under 20,000 microsieverts a year. 20 millisieverts a year, 20,000 microsieverts. So anything under that level being reopened, people are pressured to return. This will likely be used to deny people compensation for the losses since they can now return, even if they shouldn't. First off, you wouldn't measure a nuclear wasteland in millisieverts or microsieverts or any other kind of. You would just measure it in counts per minute. Because it's radioactive fallout. It's physical atoms. It's not like you're close to a nuclear holding site or a nuclear reactor or a nuclear fuel pool or a nuclear cast or something. That's where you get, because millisieverts, microsieverts is energy, right? It's this energy. And that's not what you would do with radioactive fallout. The 1-ton bags were at 100,000 atoms per kilogram, not millisieverts, not microsieverts. Any vegetables grown in the region would be subject to the same radiation testing as other food from the region. Anything below 100 atoms a kilogram is allowed to the market with no distinction between something of 0 or something rated 99. First off, they're only looking for cesium-137 allegedly. How can you even conceive to do something like that? Like, there's not a single study of a radioactive plume, radioactive fallout on the planet. Remember these communities that are abandoned? Like Fukushima City, 229,000 atoms per square meter. And that's only acknowledging cesium-137. For every cesium-137, there's 100 times more strontium-90 produced. For every single atom that you find of cesium-137, there's 100 strontium-90, which is the so-called yang of the yin, right? Because cesium-137 goes into your muscles, your organs. Strontium goes in your bones. Burns holes through your lungs, ends up in your bones. Mutates your stem cells for the rest of your life. So just because they grew food in the nuclear fucking wasteland don't mean it's safe. It can never be safe. It's a nuclear wasteland. Like, I'm only doing this. I'm only coming out and fucking begging you every goddamn show. Excuse the language. My apologies for swearing, but I only come out and beg the world every show to do something sensible. That's all I do. I'm not asking for something extraordinary. I'm just saying do something fucking sensible. Like, hold them accountable so they stop shipping food from a nuclear wasteland. Don't fucking buy it and go after your supermarkets for selling it. Get in their fucking faces for selling it. All the rice, now it's not just rice. All the rice pulled off the market since the start of the disaster were piling up in warehouses. And what to do with it caused a considerable headache. Authorities have been trying to find someone capable and willing to incinerate. They actually built 9 8-story incinerators themselves. And they burnt all kinds of stuff for years and years and years. And it's hellish trying to disassemble it and decommission them because they're so fucking radioactive. And you can't destroy radiation by burning it. You just liberate it back into the environment. It never goes away. Like the stuff that's cut up in your forest since the nuclear war they had. You call it nuclear testing, was it, for some reason? It's a nuclear war. It's the same bombs, the same radioactive fallout. It's a nuclear war. And then when the forest burns in your countries, you're liberating that radioactive fallout from 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago right back into the fucking environment. Where it attacks everything with replicating cells over and over and over for hundreds of thousands of generations. You really think this is going to work out fucking good in the long run? All the rice pulled off the market since the start of the disaster been piling up in warehouses. They did find one private incineration facility willing to reliberate the stuff back into the environment by burning it. It was not explained if this facility had any sorts of filtration for their incinerators. You can't filter this. If you filter radiation at these levels, you can't change the fucking filter. And that the small amounts that were going up will get more radioactive before they come out the other end. It's the equivalent to when your water filter fucking stops. Okay, time to change it. Go take the filter off your fucking car, come in and put it in your water filter and expect that to filter your fucking water. You got better luck that happening than you have of a filter filtering radiation, whether it's through the alleged ELP system or the REVA system or the Siri system or any of these systems. They couldn't work and they can't work and they didn't work. They were strictly meant to manipulate you and deceive you and coerce you into being complacent, and it fucking succeeded. Not the regular people that are here, obviously. None of the things I'm accusing the average person of is applicable to the people that are here all the time. They're not here because they're fucking naive. They're here because they get it. They did find one private incineration facility willing to burn it. They were grinding up the radioactive fallout in the Fukushima areas and taking it to all prefectures across the entire country, including Tokyo. All the incinerators were burning it. And we got all those headlines, right? Farmers involved suggest the contaminated rice should be fed to livestock. Somebody needs to stop these fucking people. These are not farmers. These are, in our country, we call them fucking idiots. We call them dangerous fucking idiots. They stop being a farmer when they suggested you should poison all the animals so that anybody that eat that ends up fucking poison. These are literally morons. Maybe they forgot what happened in 2011 when they fed cattle contaminated rice straw. The contaminated cattle made it to market and were later discovered causing great worry about the safety of the food supply. 180,000 children got poisoned by it. These are monsters. This industry is nothing but fucking monsters. The article does not specifically mention the potential of putting this rice into pet food. They fucking hate you, I'll tell you right now. But does suggest using it for non-human consumption. If you had acres and acres and acres of cyanide and you went and grew food in it and was going to sell it to the market, what would happen? You get arrested and you'd be in jail for the rest of your life. And you would actually do documentaries about how evil you fucking were. But you were nowhere near as evil as these despicable fucking farmers and the nuclear industry is. That person was nowhere near. They were bad. They deserve to go to jail. But they're nowhere near as insidious as these people are. Another idea is floated is using it for biofuel. If you burn it, you're just going to liberate the radioactive fallout back into the environment. You can't fucking destroy it by incinerating it. It laughs. You can't fucking destroy it is the problem. The farmers involved pointed out some of the rice is now below the 100 atoms a kilogram contamination limit. That's because they're not checking for plutonium. They're not checking for uranium. They're not checking for americium. They're not checking for neptunium. They're not checking for the biggest byproduct of the radioactive fallout, the curium isotopes, which need lead shielding 20 fucking times thicker than plutonium does. They're not checking for any of it. If they were, they couldn't sell it. They couldn't. It can't grow food in a nuclear wasteland and only get 100 atoms a kilogram. It's absurd. It's probably due to it sitting in storage long enough for the cesium-137 decay enough to, like, cesium-137 is a 30-year before the first decay happens. And when was this story? This not Chop's story? In 2013. How the fuck can cesium-137 decay in 2 years? $134. Oh, so $134. The limit is based on cesium-137, not 134, by the way. And the biggest byproduct of radiated fuel rod is curium, not cesium. Rice and Miyagi found double the radiation limits. 2013, double. Miyagi last year in a nuclear. That's a fucking abandoned nuclear wasteland. Rice grown in a farm in an abandoned nuclear wasteland in 2012 was found to contain 240 atoms of cesium per kilogram. These people the whole industry is insane. These types of stories, this is the legacy headlines I'm going through tonight. The findings caused the government to request all bags of rice from that area to be checked rather than spot checked. This was another scam that they ran for years and years and years. They didn't want it, like, you're growing it in a nuclear wasteland, they figure they'll just say, well, we check every bag, therefore it's safe. You're in a nuclear wasteland where you picked up 30 million one-ton bags of radiation and just 3%. So they didn't clean up the mountains in the backgrounds, the communities. They just cleaned up the farmer's field. They didn't clean it up. They scraped up 2 centimeters of the topsoil. Do you know how fucking hard it is to scrape up 2 centimeters of topsoil? Go with a measuring tape, take a rake, and try to scrape up 2 centimeters of topsoil. It's ludicrous to suggest you could do it. It's absurd to suggest you can do it. Beef in Miyagi was recently found to be over the legal limit in a variety of food and environmental readings in 2012. The reactors still haven't stopped melting down, for goodness sakes, this year, let alone 2012. Showed the extent of the contamination in the prefecture. Well, I can show you that, Evans. We go through it every once in a while, the whole fucking country. We walk right across the whole country with the numbers, with the documentation, with the actual studies. There is nowhere safe in Japan. I feel bad for them, but hey, fuck you. You're poisoning everybody worldwide. Go fuck yourselves. The radioactive contamination is still found in drinking water. 2013. The rain comes in, hits the mountains wash down to your aquifers. There's going to be massive. And again, the highest reading was found in Ibaraki for cesium-137. That's simply not true, is it? Like, it was 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air in North America in the Canadian study from Ottawa. And that was symmetrical across the northern hemisphere. 1 million to 10 million atoms of cesium-137 per cubic meter of air. And cesium or anything doesn't travel by itself. It's going to be, if you got those numbers, and they did, I showed you the other numbers earlier. 1 million atoms of xenon-133 per square meter. Disposition, actual radioactive fallout. 20 million atoms, particles, even worse, of iodine-129. 220 million atoms of the iodine-129. The iodine-131 rather particles, iodine-129, and we know the ratio is 10 times more 132 and 30 times more 133, which are both 9 times more effective at ionizing and radiating the thyroid gland than the brutal effective 131 is. It doesn't stop there. It doesn't even come close to the epitome of the real numbers we're talking about. We're in real trouble. We got to gut up. We got to get busy. We got to make a difference. We got to find a way. We got to find our niche, find your callings, and make a difference. You got to do it. It's your responsibility. You're responsible. It's your obligation. You're obligated because you know better. I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds hard. I know it sounds difficult. I know it seems impossible, but you're the best one for the job. You're informed. You're educated. You're not going to be fooled. You're not going to be tricked. You're not going to be manipulated. You're not going to be deceived. You're not going to be chased the fucking away. You got what it takes. You just need to make that first step. It's difficult as fuck. I know. It's scary as hell. But you got to make that first step. Every step after that gets easier. You're not here because of something to do. You're here because you were supposed to be here. The readings for Tokyo for CC-137 were higher than the readings for Fukushima City in Tokyo. And Fukushima City, what was the numbers in Fukushima City again? I got them. Hang on here. Fukushima City is a... Now we're not talking about CC-137 per square meter. That's radioactive actual underground. Multiplied by 100 to get the strontium-90. Multiplied by infinity to get the curium isotopes. 229,756 per square meter. This is the ICRP, the UN itself. So Tokyo was higher than that for CC-137. Hell, United States was... Fukushima City was 229 million atoms. All the United States, all of Canada was a million to 10 million atoms, or a million to 10 million times a legacy fallout of CC-137 per cubic meter of air. And this was sustained for months, and all the other isotopes that we talked about earlier, right? The highest reading was in the Ibaraki for cesium. Again, that's a lie. Mushrooms from Fukushima Prefecture tested found to have 4,158 atoms of cesium-137. So only acknowledging cesium-137 is the best way to kill everybody. Best way to make everybody fucking sick. Best way to wipe out all the species. The test was recently completed to show that the problems with radioactive food is not over and not isolated to Fukushima Prefecture. Tokyo was 28 million atoms after a rainfall of cesium-137 per square meter disposition, actual underground radioactive fallout. These are catastrophic numbers. Tokyo should have been, metropolitan Tokyo, 36 million people, should have been evacuated. I get fucking frustrated, and I apologize. I just seen something that made me happy. I'll tell you about it in a bit. Mushrooms absorb considerable amounts of radiation. Many wild mushrooms in parts of Europe are still banned from consumption or sale due to high levels of radiation decades after Fukushima. We're only a decade after Chernobyl. We're only a decade after Fukushima. And Chernobyl is like a paper towel compared to Fukushima. Like on the scale of Fukushima, Chernobyl doesn't even matter, but Chernobyl definitely fucking matters. But Chernobyl was a paper towel compared to Fukushima. Fukushima was around 36 reactor cores, and each one of them were about 100 Chernobyl reactors. These were pure uranium, pure plutonium. Chernobyl was a graphite reactor. It was a new reactor. It didn't have decades or any reactor cores at the top of the buildings. Fukushima had 4 decades of reactor cores at the top of each of the buildings and 2 fuel pools. They're gone. It's roughly 36 large, massive reactor cores. And at the time, when all the reactors combined, Fukushima was one of the biggest running nuclear power plants on the planet. When it was at the time, right? 6 reactors. More radiation in food in Japan. Japanese media announced yesterday Fukushima rice was previously declared all safe, is now found to be not all safe. That sounds Japanese altogether. This is 2011. Harvest from farms around Fukushima City, a nuclear wasteland, I just showed you numbers, was found to be over the government's limit of 500 atoms per kilogram. See, a Becquerel is a pulse of energy. You can't have a pulse of energy without the physical atom. And that pulse of energy might last for millions of years. So how long does it take to decay? About 1 million years. So for 1 million years, every second it explodes almost at the speed of light, and somehow that's called a decay. Because when you call it a decay, the nuclear industry looks good. When you call it an explosion, the nuclear industry looks like what it is, a piece of shit. A fucking scumbag, right? Anybody knows me knows I'm not cranky. I'm desperately trying to get this planet to come to his senses and fight back. I know that's a pipe dream right now, but trust me, it's more than possible. More radiation in food. Harvest from farms around Fukushima City. That's the craziest statement imaginable. That's the most batshit lunatic and nightmarish statement conceivable. Harvest from farms around a nuclear wasteland. It's just absurd. 2011. Fukushima City is not that far away from ongoing, never-ending nuclear meltdowns. November the 18th, 2011. I'd like to thank Calm Down Charlie and crew, because without their constant attacks and harassments and crimes against me, I would never be here. I'm only here because I hate them so fucking much. I'm never going to go away now. We have deja vu all the time now. We have the same fucking poll every night because I don't like these people anymore. They've pushed me past my limits. Did the Japs' massive radioactive nuclear fallout cause mass die-offs worldwide of all species and humans? And I showed some of the research expeditions. A quick summary, a blip of the reality at the beginning of it. It's quite the eye-opener. Quite the frightening eye-opener. More radiation in food in Japan. It blows my mind, eh? The government is now considering banning rice sales from Fukushima. 500 atoms a kilogram. Why was 500 atoms safe in 2011, but not safe in 2012? Well, in 2012, they had an extra 865,000 cancers. Not everybody got health care. Not everybody was diagnosed. Cancer is not the only illness or diseases. They had 13,646 out of 38,000 children with thyroid tumors of 2 centimeters, which is about the size of the thyroid in a child. An adult is 3 by 5 centimeters, and a child's around 2 centimeters, right? Which means those children, which is 35.6%, which is 356,000 out of a million, because it used to be 1 in a million. And now it's 35.6%. Or 35.9%. 359,000 out of a million when you scale it up. The thyroid tumors are 2 centimeters. So these are developing, right? But when your thyroid is only 2 centimeters, it's a big fucking tumor then. It means Also, that the child is only going to produce radioactive hormones for the rest of life, and there's no way that's going to come out any good. What would you do if your child, your brother, your sister, your loved one, your friend, your family, child is only producing radioactive hormones? You'd be pretty upset, right? Appropriately so. You should be just as upset, or even worse, because Fukushima is doing it to everything and every species and everybody. They might have been considering, but they didn't do it. They didn't ban the food, did they? 55 countries banned it for a fucking decade, but they didn't ban it. They didn't stop growing food in the nuclear wasteland. This was almost expected when the government rushed to declare all the Fukushima rice to be safe, as they tested rice from areas far from the plant. It's still in Fukushima Prefecture. It's more like a publicity stunt than food testing, and now has shown it was just that. Everything they'd done was the worst thing you could have done. They took the worst route you can take. They make it perpetually worse than what it would have been. By continuing to grow food in a nuclear wasteland, refusing, and every step of the way, refusing to acknowledge they even got a nuclear meltdown. And last year, the International Atomic Energy Agency, in conjunction with South Korea, Taiwan, China, and Japan, came out and claimed there is no nuclear meltdowns. There was no nuclear meltdowns. Nothing got out. Everything was in the tanks. The ultimate in betrayal. The ultimate lie on top of that. The ultimate go fuck yourself. That's what they done to you. Beef in Iwaki Prefecture showing with extreme cesium contamination that is below the government's limit, which is at 500 atoms per kilogram at that point of cesium-137. We're not looking for plutonium, not looking for uranium, not looking for the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rods, which is the curium isotopes. You know what? I'm just going to pick up there tomorrow night. Because it's such an insane story that I think it deserves more prominence than I can give it tonight. I've been giving it pretty good for an hour and 47 minutes straight. I've been going hardcore. I got my caliper showed up for the truck a week early, showed up today. I decided I got to take care of myself today, because I'm busted up. And I don't like saying it because I know the industry is paying attention, but my whole body's busted up from perpetual work, and I had to take care of myself today. I had to try to give myself some comfort, buy things that'll make my life a little bit better. And it hurt me to do it, but I know it's the right thing to do. Because all I think about is how do we do the research? How do we get the documentation? How do we keep the whole operation moving forward? The whole operation comes first, right? And it has for as long as I can remember now. I can't seem to remember anything anymore. I've been doing this for so fucking long, 23 years. And Fukushima is a nightmare. It's a nightmare. The whole legacy of the nuclear industry is just horrifying. It's really horrifying what they've done with all the nuclear dumping and the alleged nuclear testing contaminated every species. That was the turning point of the species, was the nuclear testing, which was a nuclear war. They didn't fire it in anger at somebody. They just blew it up in your own countries. Or even worse, they went to all the tropical paradises and fucking razed them, flattened them, turned them into nuclear wastelands. I mean, the Marshall Islands, Bikini Atolls, a 2019 study showed over 1 million square kilometers is still too radioactive to be habitable. And these are the nurseries of the oceans. These are tropical paradises. They were. Right? The Christmas Island was a tropical paradise. The French Polynesians Islands was tropical paradise. Montebello, Marilinga, tropical paradises. The Marshall Islands, tropical paradises. And we destroyed everything. All the tropical paradises. Well, let's go right there. right? We can't radiate our own country anymore. The government won't let us. Well, let's just go out there in our tropical paradises and fucking destroy them for 1 billion years. Oh, by the way, they're the nursery of the oceans. How could they do something like that? How can you be that evil? How can you be that big of a degenerate? We're not talking about what China done, or India done, or Russia done, or Pakistan fucking done, or the rest of the scumbags. Right? You look at what the French done, you look at what the Americans done, the Canadians included. Huh? If you look at what the British done, it's revolting. And they knew exactly what they were doing. Every academic there knew exactly what the results of the radioactive fallout and the perpetual congenital malformations of all species would turn out to be over a few decades. How bad that was going to play for the existence and the continuations of the species on the planet. And then all the dumping they'd done into the ocean, my goodness. The absolute sadistic legacy of the International Atomic Energy Agency. How can you not see them as the devil? How does that work? Right? And you can see that they're saying nothing melted down at Fukushima. There was no meltdown. Nothing escaped. How, in goodness sakes, can they claim that they have any human rights, that they shouldn't be in some dungeon for the rest of their life, in some jail? How is that possible? That they think they're human, that they're accepted by all these countries. He just sits around as representative of the International Atomic Energy Agency, the snot on the UN's tail. The worst humans imaginable. That's all we've seen. That's what they put on the pedestal, is the worst humans imaginable. And all of them, every one of them, all the nuclear industry, all their laws can be challenged under the racketeering statutes. Every one of them. Did Japan's massive radioactive fallout cause mass die-off worldwide of all species and humans? And I quantified that at the beginning, in case you're not familiar with this stuff. And I know I'm a little bit agitated tonight. You should see me, and I'm pretty good tonight. You should see me when I'm having a bad fucking day. And so I've been nursing this arm, and this elbow in particular, for about a week and a half. I mean, I'm nursing it all the time, trying to get it to get better, because I hurt myself when I fell, right? We're supposed to have 4 or 5 centimeters of snow tonight and tomorrow. We're supposed to get some warm weather on Tuesday. So Tuesday I got to try to get the caliper on the truck, because then we got freezing cold weather again, and we want to get out and do some research. And not yesterday, but the day before, I spent 3 hours just trying to put a set of lights on the back of this skidoo. What a nightmare! I got it though. What a freaking nightmare! Everything I seem to touch is fucking. It's just I'm all broken up. But the thing is, if you just get it done, move on to the next one, get that done, eventually get the next one done. Just keep going like that's what we've been doing for years and years. We get it done. It's shocking though. And one of the few things that made me happy tonight was I seen James put out another song. It's pretty awesome. James Lucid has produced more anti-nuclear music than all musicians worldwide combined, I think. And he's using AI, and he's doing the videos and the audios, and it's incredible what a single person can do. It's incredible. Like, it's incredible what a single person can do. He just said, fuck it. And then he went for it. We're going to play that song tonight. The most recent. I was going to play his other song. It was about crocodiles at Turkey Point, which is an excellent subject, by the way, because they're pumping 100 million gallons of salt out into these marshes to cool. And then the salt gathers up out there. And they've already seen this happen at other places, right? They use that particular system. And some animals will end up in there like alligators and that. That doesn't mean it's fucking healthy. And they're basically trapped there. Nice warm water, right? But you'll see, the industry used that as a propaganda tool. Yeah, I thought I had this up there, sorry. Oh my God, 4.45 thousand subscribers now, just flying. Exploiting nuclear innocence, this should be awesome. Get over there and subscribe to this guy, give him a thumbs up. You see his comments in the comment section too, right? And you see a link in the bottom of my description. I'll see everybody tomorrow night. I drag my sorry ass back here again. Have a great night. Hugs for you and your friends and your families and your loved ones. We'll see you on the next show. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you make it this far. Take care, folks.
You draped your towers in a banner of care, selling progress in a world stripped bare. But the truth ripples beneath your spin, every isotopic lie etched deep within. You spoke of justice, of lifting the lost, but wrapped your poison in a glittered gloss. You funded the voices too tired to shout, to keep the rest from ever finding out. With flags of inclusion, you silenced the fight, building trust under reactor light. But no banners can shield what the isotopes know. Decay in the soil, too deep to show.
It was never for power, it was never for peace. It was war dressed up as a needed release. You didn't build balance, you built a machine to keep the warhead sharp and the arsenals clean.
The promise of lights was always a lie. What you call progress is just who will die. You burned generations to ensure the yield, and drew your lines on the battlefield. Your progress is a veil of fragile guise, a kingdom of fallout beneath bright skies. You said it was safety, you said it was clean, but the isotopes fester in places unseen. You called it a future, but futures don't last when the clocks you win tick down so fast. The isotopes vibrate, their presence grows in the marrow of nations, their truth will show. What is the purpose of a power so vast that it poisons the future to mirror the past? What is security if the price is the grave, and the nations you shield are the ones you enslave? Your progress is poison, your balance is rot, and the light you promised is the future forgot. The isotopes wait where the rivers have died, and the fallout will bury what you've tried to hide. In the marrow, in the stone, in the air we breathe, lies the curse of a world that cannot leave. The isotopes endure, their message remains. Your safety is ruined, the fallout ingrains.